I moved into the sober living house on the outskirts of downtown Oakland the day before Thanksgiving in 2022. The building itself was an old hotel that dated back to the 1890s. The place had a long and complicated history involving drugs, alcohol, prostitution, and recovery. Over the course of its 130-year life, the building had seen just about everything. Originally, it was a hotel where stagecoaches would stop while traveling through the Bay Area. Later, it became a brothel where women entertained men passing through Oakland. As the decades went by and the neighborhood fell deeper into drugs and alcohol, the building was eventually abandoned and taken over by addicts and others who were part of that gritty underground world. About 30 years ago, the building was purchased for $1 by a recovery organization. They renovated the place and turned it into a drug and alcohol treatment facility. Then, about 10 years ago, it was converted again, this time into a men's sober living home. By the time I arrived, the place had already lived several different lives. For more than 100 days before that move, I had been in an environment where every part of my life was controlled. I was told when to go to sleep, when to wake up, when to eat, and most painfully, when I was allowed to see my son. Now things were a little different. I still couldn't see him whenever I wanted, but I had more freedom than before. The sober living house had rules, but the rules were designed for people who were trying to build a new life without drugs or alcohol. In this program, you had 6 months to find a job, build stability, and figure out where you were going to live next. 6 months sounds like a long time when someone first tells you that number. But once the clock starts ticking, time begins to move fast. About 90% of the men in the house work or ordered to be there. They had probation officers and had to report their progress week by week. Some of them were forced into the program and were just waiting for the first opportunity to get high again. Others genuinely wanted to change their lives. And then there were a few of us who had chosen to be there voluntarily. That created a strange environment where some people were trying to move forward, while others were quietly counting the days until they could go back to their old habits. The location of the house didn't make sobriety any easier. Half a block away, next to a vacant parking lot, people would party on the street corner day and night. Just down Telegraph Avenue, there was a liquor store with a marijuana dispensary right next to it. Temptation wasn't just around the corner. It was literally outside the front door. The one advantage of the location was transportation. The East Bay Bus System hub was only about a 10-minute walk away, which meant you could get almost anywhere in the Bay Area without much trouble. But riding those buses also reminded you of something else. Every time I got on one, I was reminded of what drugs and alcohol do to communities. The poverty, the crime, the broken people, it was all right there in front of you. To live in the sober living house, there were still rules you had to follow. There was a strict curfew. Everyone had assigned chores. And if you weren't working yet, you were required to attend drug and alcohol classes 3 times a week. Once again, I found myself surrounded by people who were there because the courts forced them to be. Only a handful of us were there because we truly wanted to be. 6 months sounds like a long time when you first hear it. But once you move in and the calendar starts counting down, it begins to feel very different. Every day the clock is ticking toward your move-out date. And when that date starts getting closer, the reality sets in. You begin to realize that recovery isn't just about getting sober. It's about figuring out how to live again. And that realization can be both exciting and terrifying at the same time.